Well, hello again. This is our number 12 in the series of Remove Environmental Risk from the Transaction. The title of this installment is Leaking Underground Storage Tanks. We had this series going on. This is our number 12, and we have many more to go. The series has over 30 videos. I encourage you to go to the earlier ones. They are very interesting, I guarantee, and there will be more to come. I have been doing this environmental investigations since 1988, and phase 1 and phase 2 environmental site assessments, contamination cleanup and abatement, and I give a lot of free introductory consultations. The Small Business Administration, which is a United States government department, which are standing behind many, if not most, of all the commercial loans in the United States, they define, or they say, I should say, that in their environmental policies and procedures, they have this SOP 5010-6. This is Standard Operating Procedure, by which they operate to give all these loans and backup loans and backup to loans. And so this is a whole Bible all by itself. And in it, there is a chapter 6, other core requirements. And in chapter 6, there is a subchapter called Environmental Policies and Procedures. And basically what they say there is that almost every commercial transaction has to have environmental investigation reports. And these reports, they say, have what they call them transaction screens, phase 1 and phase 2, ESA, environmental site assessments. All of these reports must be done, and block letters, bold letters, must be performed by an environmental professional. And who or what is an environmental professional? This is what the EPA has defined. They have a whole chapter on it in the regulations, which tells us what an environmental professional is made of. And since the SBA decided that environmental professionals, by EPA definitions, must do reports must be done by environmental professionals, you can imagine, and trust me, that most, if not all, the commercial lenders are going by the EPA, by the SBA decisions, because many of their loans are going back to the SBA, and they say that the reports have to be done by environmental professionals. So who or what is an environmental professional? Again, that's the EPA. That's a long definition of the EPA. And here are some headliners. This is not the definition, but some headliners. It's just, they say who qualifies. They say who qualifies as an environmental professional. They say what professional certification is needed, what license is needed. They say what educational requirements are there. What else? What experience they need, and also they go through the definition of relevant experience. So it's a long story there, a long definition of what environmental professional is. And I'm happy to tell you that I do qualify for it, and I'm not the only one. I do not pretend to be the only environmental professional on the planet or in the United States. There are quite a few of those that qualify. For me, I graduated in 1964 with a BSc in mechanical engineering, additional credit in nuclear and chemical engineering, and I went the next 20 years I spent in nuclear reactors, in chemical plants, as design, operation, maintenance, construction, all of those facets of engineering. And eventually I came to California, and since 1989, I have been a general engineering contractor, specializing and licensed by the state of California to remove hazardous substances. So hazardous substances removal certification, and I've done a lot of it since 1989. The state of California at one time awarded me the Registered Environmental Assessor Level 2, REA Level 2, and with that registration, they said that I have completed all of the requirements for the most stringent level of environmental registration provided by the state. They said that I am a project manager who can conduct all assessments and investigations, plus issue cleanup opinions. That's very important to be qualified to issue cleanup opinions, because when we go out, the regulatory agencies, if we do projects under them, they rely on our opinions. We are their, we have fiduciary duty. We are their representatives in the field, all right? So it's very important to, it's a high responsibility to issue cleanup opinions, and also evaluate the risk from contamination, and manage the cleanup of contaminated sites. So yes, I'm very, very proud to have been qualified by the state of California. And again, I'm not the only one, because there are several, quite a few qualified individuals in our field, and I'm very, very proud to belong to this group. Here is a quick example of removal of hazardous substances. I told you that I'm a qualified, registered, certified contractor to remove hazardous substances. This used to be a pesticides facility. What you see here is the soil, which is contaminated with pesticides. All these pieces of concrete are contaminated with pesticides. We have to break them into small pieces in order to take them to a landfill. And when we break them, we generate dust, and you see us spraying water to eliminate the dust. And this is very important because we have these neighbors here, which are families and old people and young people and babies. And we don't want them to inhale dust that is coming from outside, dust which is contaminated with pesticides. So not only we put water, we monitor the entire site, and I already had a special video on that, how we do it. We monitor the entire site all around for little speckles of dust. Any tiny bit of dust that flies around, it's being monitored, and if we go beyond a certain very minimal range, we stop all work. We get an alarm, we stop all the work. This was very sensitive work to do, and we managed it well. I'm very proud of it, and right now we have an apartment building. There's a 16-unit apartment building that this place that used to be quite contaminated. The Voltaire, yes, Voltaire, he says, don't think money does everything, or you are going to end up doing everything for money. So I always like to, how to say, enter some nice quotations, and because it makes me, and maybe it will make you also think about what we do in life and what is the purpose of everything that we do. And money by itself is not the purpose. Money does not do everything. And I thought it was a nice quotation, so I inserted it here. And to our subject of the day is underground storage tank, and especially the tanks which are leaking. And I took the liberty to borrow this nice illustration from whom? From, how does it say it? It says someplace here that it is from Environment Canada. Okay, we don't see it on the screen maybe, but this is the Department of Environment of Canada. All right, so I borrowed it from them, and what we see here is a tank. It's like a gasoline station, and we have the pump or dispenser, and there is a pipe goes into the tank, and the gasoline goes into the pump, and it's being pumped to the cars or the trucks that come about. Well, this tank you see is leaking, and the black stuff is the bad stuff. Many we like to show in black things which are bad. So the black stuff is the bad stuff in this case, and this is the gasoline which is leaking from the tank and leaking into the soil. So the tank is sitting in the soil, what we call unsaturated soil. This is the sand, the silt, the clay, combination thereof. There is a tank excavation. The tank is sitting there, leaking into the soil. So the gasoline saturates the soil and goes down, 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 and hit groundwater. The black line here that you see, this is the groundwater table. It represents the groundwater table. Everything below the black line is saturated with water. This is what we call the aquifer. So everything under the black line is saturated with water, and the water table is the black line. Above it, the soil is not saturated. Below it, the soil is saturated with water. Gasoline is the lighter, lighter or less denser and lighter than water, and therefore it will hit the groundwater and it will pancake here and it will kind of float, and some of it will dissolve into the water. They say here soluble fractions of gasoline dissolve in water. The reason they say fractions is because gasoline is not by itself a chemical compound. It is a soup, if you wish, of over 200 or maybe over 500, I don't remember right now, for sure over 200 different chemical compounds. So it has they call them fractions. Okay, so they are, some of them dissolve in the groundwater and is carried around with the groundwater, moving like my cursor here, my laser pointer, and moving with the groundwater, eventually getting into the well here, and they contaminate the well here on the right side. And here are these guys, they are pumping water from the well. This is an illustration, a conceptual illustration, and it comes to their home, okay? The water contaminated water is coming to their home. And so this is one of the liabilities of leaking underground storage tanks, okay? They contaminate groundwater, and groundwater with the contamination get to the well, contaminate the well, the contaminated water go into the house. What happens in the soil itself, this is very typical. You see the black plume in the soil. This does not go far away. It never goes far. It will go in the soil itself, in the unsaturated soil. It will go a few feet away from the tank and it will stop. Okay, so usually we are not concerned about this contamination migrating in the soil itself. Okay, it stays mostly in the area of the tank excavation. We had situations where we removed tanks like this, and the bottom of the excavation was contaminated, and everything under the tanks was contaminated. You move a few feet away from the tank excavation, everything was clean, bona fide, like born clean, okay, clean, like so. It doesn't go too far in the soil, but it does travel with the water. Now, the more troublesome component here are the vapors, because gasoline is volatile. It will volatilize, and when it is in the soil, it volatilizes, and it can get into a sewer pipe. And you have a sewer pipe coming by, and sewer pipes are not hermetic, and they have many cracks in them and open joints, and the vapors can enter and get through the sewer pipe and so into the home and create a potential for explosion. So, and today, more than explosion, we are really concerned. Yeah, we are concerned about explosion in the case of gasoline, but also it's toxic. If you inhale it, it's toxic. So these are the concerns that we have with gasoline tanks leaking, and also if it goes the other direction with groundwater, it will get into the lake and into the ocean. But seldom have I seen gasoline leaking into lakes or oceans. The cases that I've seen were contaminated soil under the tanks, contaminated groundwater. Seldom have I seen gasoline traveling in sewer pipes, although I'm not saying that it is impossible. I heard of cases where it happened. I personally have not met it. And as far as the vapors of gasoline traveling in the soil, again, it's not a major issue. They don't go too far, but we need to check for them, especially for structures that are on the property. So this is about this tank, and I had a lot to say about this conceptual diagram. And here are some pictures of real tanks on the upper left side. This is a 4,000-gallon tank that we removed a few years ago. And see here at the bottom left, see the bottom of the tank. See these holes here? You can stick your head to them. This tank rotted away, rusted away, corroded away, okay? And it had these big holes there. And it was full with contaminated water. Lucky enough, I mean, luck was there, and God or luck or whatever was on the side of the owners. The holes, these holes were plugged by the clay under the tank, and the contaminated water did not go any further. Otherwise, it could have been a multi-million-dollar cleanup, but it did not happen. But it does show you these tanks can leak, and they are holes, and they are corroding. On the upper right-hand side, you see another tank that we removed from the excavation. This is how they look like. On the bottom right, you see an excavation which is contaminated with gasoline. Usually, the gasoline contaminated soil, if it is old, it has this color like heavy green gray color, and it smells very bad. You get close to it, you will get a headache. All right, so that's how it looks in real life. And here is another case illustration of a real life situation. The gasoline station was here. Look at my cursor, look at my laser pointer. This property is a gasoline station, and it leaked the purple stuff. This is free gasoline floating on the groundwater here. Oh God, I think it was about 30 feet, if my memory serves me right. And it floated on the water. And if this is a station, you see that the free gasoline left the station, the purple stuff. Then it dissolved into the groundwater. The green stuff is a solution, is how it dissolved. And the heavier the green, the heavier the contamination. The lighter the green, the lighter the contamination. And the plume, the contaminated plume, migrated. Look up here, the blue arrow gives you the direction of the groundwater. And so it migrated with the groundwater, crossed the street, moved onto this property here, created a big mess. I can tell you, by now, they have spent over $2 million, and they have not yet cleaned it up. And these guys here in the corner, they went bankrupt, and the contamination goes to these guys here, and the guy downstairs from them or downhill. They cannot clean up the mess because it keeps coming at them from a station that has been abandoned. All right, so this is the bad case. This is the bad news. The good news is that these cases are the exception. They are not the rule, but you need to know about them so you don't run into them. Next one. Okay, here is another beautiful, beautiful in quotation marks, but still, this is a case that I've been involved in. Started my involvement in 2006. By 2017, I gave the baton to another company, another consultant, and the situation there is this is the contaminator. This is the property that contaminated. This is where the tanks used to be. You say it says UST area. So this is where the UST underground storage tanks used to be. The dashed lines here signify the excavation where the tanks used to be. The kind of brownish stuff here, this is free gasoline leaked from the tanks. This is free gasoline that is sitting in the substrate, in this case, it is clay, okay? The subsurface soil here is heavy clay, all right? So it saturated the clay and arrived at groundwater. Now, the blue dashed line is groundwater, and down below, the kind of light turquoise line is also groundwater. Also, this is to tell you that the groundwater table, which is marked by those dashed lines, has been fluctuating over the years, moving up and down, all right? So lately, it has been here at around 16 feet, but there were times where it was down 25 feet, so up and down. So what happens is you have this stuff here, the brown, which is saturated gasoline, hitting groundwater. When the groundwater was below, it saturated the clay. So this brownish, dense brownish here where my cursor is moving, this is still clay which is saturated with gasoline. And under it, it's not saturated. This is light brownish. And then the gasoline here, this is the saturated area, dissolve into the groundwater, the light, whatever color you call it, the light purple, or so. This is dissolved gasoline, and it's moving with the plume, and it's going further away. Look up here, I marked for you the street. Okay, this is a very wide street, it's a thoroughfare, very wide thoroughfare. This is the source. The contamination, the free product, the free gasoline crossed the street, arrived at the other end, went under the buildings here, etc., and moved, I believe, maybe a couple of 100 feet all the way to this point. There are buildings here, there are stores, and the point is that at this point, to this point, close to $2 million have been spent on this case. Not much cleanup has been done. Some cleanup was done. When I was there, we removed whatever we could remove, vapors from the subsurface, but close to $2 million, and most of the contamination is still there. It cannot be cleaned up. It's sitting in the clay, and you cannot remove. Once it is in the clay, some people may come and say, yeah, you can remove it, but this is horrendously expensive. And also in this case, what happened, we have natural oil coming up and mixing with this contamination. So whenever you try to clean it up, you get natural oil. So after $2 million down, the agencies came to the conclusion, which made us happy, that there is no point to further clean up this case, and we leave it the way it is, and the case is closed. The contamination stays there. So you see, not every case has to be remediated. This case, a lot of money was spent, but eventually the case is closed, the contamination is there, and it's going nowhere. Here is another picture of the same case. This is where the source is. This is just another depiction. So where the heavy red, this is where the source is, and you see the plume traveled. This is the major street here. I'm sorry, this is the major street here. Here is the street. Cross the street, see all these buildings here. They are filled with stores and restaurants, and crossed over, moved to the back alley, moved under the next buildings, and stopped here. Did not arrive at the next alley here. So it went pretty far away. A very interesting case of contamination. As far as your interest is concerned, yes, we spent close to $2 million there. Yes, the case is closed, and we need to be aware of such cases. All right, well, this is the end of this one, and thank you for being such a good audience. Call me at 323-899-5001 if you have any questions. I'm very happy to help. I'm very happy to talk to you about cases that you have. Send me reports. I'll explain them to you. Feel free to call me anytime. Email me at amia@amiadini.com. Go to our website, amiadini.com. There are lots of videos there. Thank you very much.